The topic for today is uncertainty. I have a way of navigating uncertainty that's going to be useful to financial advisors. It's uncertainty in the business, unsure with all the uncertainties right now in the financial markets and the headlines outside of our industry, like AI is coming for our jobs. We have digital assets to learn about. There's just so many uncertainties. It occurred to me that I have developed a way of navigating uncertainty so that you don't have to fear it, you don't have to avoid it, you can harness it. But let's dig into it a little bit. For most financial advisors, I might add, for most clients of financial advisors, uncertainty can be paralyzing. People react in different ways when things are changing and things that are unknown are coming faster than they can manage. The natural reaction is to slow down, either be cautious or the opposite. The reaction for some people is to feel like you have to do something and then act rashly. So what do you do, or do you do anything? I've identified a key that unlocks this issue and focus on the things that will not only help you manage uncertainty, but I'm going to show you how to actually lean into the uncertainty to create, from a marketing standpoint, something that's going to radically differentiate you from any other financial advisor in your market. But unlock what? Again, I'm going to talk about three key areas when it comes to dealing with uncertainty. One is to unlock your business strategy so that you know how are you going to approach all of this from a business strategy standpoint, but then also client service. How are you going to approach clients? What are you going to do? What are you going to say given all of this uncertainty? And then the third is client acquisition. It's a little bit different dealing with uncertainty when you're talking to non-clients, but we'll deal with that too because this unlocks that as well. But there's no question that uncertainty is not only prevalent right now, but you can feel it in the ground beneath your feet. The ground beneath your business is cracking, and it's cracking wider every day. I want you to think of this uncertainty, all of this change that we're having to deal with, as the San Andreas Fault. In California, there's this famous fault line where when that thing moves, you have all these massive earthquakes in California, and they're felt in other states. So the San Andreas Fault is this crack that's widening. On the one side of the fault are client expectations, what I'm calling the physical world. On the other side of the fault is the virtual world. It's the capability of things like AI and technology and digital assets to affect through the virtual world an improvement in its capabilities so that you've got it coming from both sides. You have client expectations that are widening as AI becomes better and digital assets become more of a thing. That fault is widening against you. And also on the physical world, you have client expectations about things like service, performance on portfolios. Everything is changing. So I want you to think of this San Andreas Fault as a widening gap until November of last year, when I first started realizing that all these uncertainties are accelerating, not slowing down. I realized that this fault line is doubling every 6 months. So we are all planted on one side of the fault line. What do we do when the fault line is coming towards us? The fault line is moving towards us, and we're living on the edge of it. But I want to go back a little bit. Like about a year ago, I started noticing, hey, these uncertainties that I'm used to in my career, we're always dealing with some level of uncertainty. Clients are nervous about it. We're worried about what to do internally in the business to adjust and course correct based on the current uncertainties. But I noticed, especially in the last 12 months, that these uncertainties are persistent and speeding up. I'm talking primarily about the environment that we live in as financial advisors, the financial markets, uncertainty, the headlines, like what clients are reading in the news that's creating an elevated level of uncertainty for them. So in the financial markets, primarily the moves in the market, which seem to be bobbing and weaving as perceptions changed as to who was going to win the presidential election. The financial markets are going to react one way if one person wins and a different way if the other wins. And so you had during the election all this financial market volatility and the opinions of the day about that. But then you also had the headlines. So we were involved in a war in Europe, and there were tensions in the Middle East. These are the headlines that are not only affecting the financial markets, but mainly affecting the minds of the clients who are reading all this stuff, and they want to know, is there a plan? If there's a plan, what is the plan? And then last November, I started doing a deep dive, as I've mentioned many times, where I was somewhat clueless about AI and digital assets, but I started fixing that very quickly. Within a couple of months, I recognized not only are these two things inflection points, but as far as what we're going to have to do as financial advisors, this widens that fault line to the point where it's accelerating faster than I realized. That's on me for not catching on to AI and digital assets and their threats to the current financial advisor services that we're going to be delivering in the future, but I have fixed that now. We know how to react to it. We know how to actually take advantage of it. So the point is, we're living on the edge of the San Andreas fault line. It's growing exponentially. It's doubling every 6 months. We're living on the edge of it. So it's not like we can do nothing. It's coming, and we need to react. There's no question in my mind that many, if not most, financial advisors are to some degree or another ambivalent or oblivious to this fault line and that it's coming for them. Every other inflection point that I've seen in my career, and this is the fourth major inflection that I've experienced in my 40-year career, many financial advisors are going to get swallowed up by this. They're going to wake up, realize this is happening, and it's too late to do anything about it at that point. They're just going to have to find something else to do or find other ways to add values to clients. But the days of being a financial advisor, the way we've envisioned it in all these 4 decades that I've been doing it, is transforming totally. It's going to be a different relationship with clients and with the value we provide the marketplace than ever before. That's what we're figuring out, how to navigate and deal with this uncertainty. I have a way of recommending doing that. So what's going to be the call to action in this video? I've got a webinar. The purpose of this video is to walk through it enough in a short period of time to just see if you see the wisdom of creating a plan to navigate through all of this uncertainty. And then you attend or watch the replay of this webinar where I literally take an hour and we talk about what to do, how to explain it and describe it with clients, how to explain it and describe what you're doing to navigate all this to potential clients, which is a whole different conversation. So it's going to take me an hour to really walk through the logic. My goal in this video is just to separate the advisors. You have advisors who hear what I'm saying and they dismiss it. That's fine. I'm trying to identify the advisors that this resonates with, and they think, yeah, he's right, and I need to be doing something. So I want to start understanding how to have a framework and a formula mentally for dealing with this and navigating through this and surviving on the other end of all this change. So the first step in the logic is to recognize that what I'm saying is true. There is this fault line that's coming towards us, and it's not a fad. It's not just a fluctuation like we've seen in the past. This is relentless. There's nothing stopping this. That you are in the pathway, living on the edge of the fault line, and just recognizing that. That's the first step. But I think for me, the most terrifying thing about all this is that it's not just a small minority of financial advisors who are oblivious to this. It's most financial advisors. I talk to financial advisors every day. I work with financial advisors all over the English-speaking world, the US, Canada, Australia, UK. I'm constantly talking with high-end financial advisors and multifamily office owners about what we're dealing with in all areas of our business. And I can tell you, it's not a small minority that are dismissing all of this uncertainty that we're talking about today. It's most of them. I feel like my job is to scream it from the rooftops that this fault line is widening. It's doubling every 6 months. AI and digital assets are able to do twice as much more than it could 6 months ago. And all this uncertainty that we're seeing in the financial markets and the headlines, it's not declining and slowing down, it's speeding up. The pace at which things are changing is really remarkable. And to realize that most financial advisors are dismissing all this and, oh, there's always been some apocalypse on the headline for my whole career, so I'm going to dismiss it just like I have in the past. I'm going to just keep my head down and keep doing business the way we've been doing it because we're successful. We know what we're doing. We don't need to zag and weave every time there's some nervous headline or there's some bump in the financial markets or some new things that comes along and they think of AI as just some new software system when in actuality it's a revolution in the way we do business. The alarming thing to me is they are living right on the edge of the fault line. It's coming for them. It's going to swallow them up, many of them. I'm worried about that. I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to help that. As far as AI, most of the financial advisors and wealth management companies and family offices that I consult with have just started using AI for what I'm going to call cosmetic adjustments in the way they use AI and the way it's helping their business. As opposed to the way we're using it with my clients, it's revolutionizing literally everything we do in terms of providing value to ideal clients. My job is to do an extraordinary job of planning for every ideal client in a way that exceeds their expectations, but internally to do it in a way that is the most efficient. For me, it's doing 60% of what we were doing a year and a half ago. If it took an hour for some task a year and a half ago, because of AI, it's taking just 20 minutes today. So we're talking about a 40% productivity enhancement. That's not just using AI to make cosmetic adjustments in what we're doing. That's harnessing AI to literally transform everything that we're doing and to understand its limitations. Because at this stage in the technology, there is so much that it cannot do. But it's doubling every 6 months, so it's coming fast when it comes to improvements. So you come back to the fault line. You have client expectations on one side of the fault line. You have the virtual world, AI and digital assets on the other side. The virtual world and what technology and what can be done on the internet without a financial advisor, that's widening fast. But let's go to client expectations for a minute. Clients are pretty simple, I've always felt. They just have one use case for us. It is, I've got things that involve money and planning to achieve in my future, and I'd like to have someone help me navigate to create a plan to get from where I am now to where I want to be with my objectives, my goals. That's a pretty standard setup. A client has all these goals. Here's where they are now. Here's where they want to be, and they hire us. Now, do they have to hire us? No, there are many do-it-yourselfers out there that are quite comfortable without a financial advisor creating this connection between where they are now and where they want to be on their own. Thankfully, there is a solid market of people, even ones that could do it themselves, they just prefer not to. They look at this planning and they say, maybe, sure, I could do it myself, but I've got things more important in my life other than money. So it's not that they couldn't do it. It's that they have the money, the resources, and they have access to you. They would just prefer not to. They're willing to pay a large sum of money not to have to do it themselves. But when you think about these client goals, think of them as any business project. A client has a goal, even if it's a challenging goal, it's going to require some complex planning to pull it off. It's the same as any project in our business. Acquiring clients, that's a project. You have inputs and outputs. So on any project, you have the inputs, in other words, the things that you're going to be doing that you have total control over, and then you have the outputs. Call it the outcome. This is the end result of your inputs. All I'm saying is, what doesn't occur to clients and what doesn't occur to many financial advisors is often, and I would say almost always, the outcomes and the outputs of any project are out of your control. They're overwhelming. Take an example of client acquisition. I hear advisors all the time saying, I need to increase revenue in my business. We're doing great, but we need to increase it and grow faster. Or I've got 20 ideal clients. I'd really rather have 50 ideal clients and not have to mess with so many non-ideal clients. I hear things like that. How is the corollary with this example? So you have the output is clear. I want 50 ideal clients. That's the outcome. Are you in control of that? It's not going to just happen. It's not going to be like delivering all these clients from heaven, 30 ideal clients. Some advisors swear that's what happens. They say that they grow by referral only, and they are getting referrals at a certain pace. So sure, if you want to wait 15 years at the current pace of referrals, maybe it will be delivered out of heaven. But what I'm saying is most business projects are on a timeline. An advisor will say, I've got 20 ideal clients. I'd like to have 30 ideal clients by June 1st of 2030. So something like that. So now we have two elements. We have a timeline. Here's where we are now, date-wise. And then we have a future goal, June 1st, 2030. That's the outcome. That's the output. What I'm saying is, rather than do as most clients and most advisors, rather than obsessing on the outcome, the thing least in your control, the thing to do is focus on the inputs. The inputs are the daily tasks, the weekly tasks that you're going to take action towards this objective. So it boils down to the power of now. What am I going to do now, this week? Do I even have a checklist of action items that I'm in complete control of? Doesn't matter if the markets are up or down. So focus on the things you can control. Those are the inputs. And don't obsess over the outcome, the objective, the thing least within your control. This is a corollary with clients as well. How many times does a client come in because the market declined 20% or something quickly and their hair's on fire and they're thinking, what are you going to do? What's the plan? Shouldn't we sell everything and sit on the sidelines? Or something like that. So the idea is we can't focus on the thing we can't control, or if we do, we're just going to make rash decisions. In other words, we're going to make mistakes. But if we focus on the things that we can control, the inputs, the what are we going to do this week or this month to move us towards the goal, like a client's goal with their money, then now you're cooking. So let's wrap this up. Should you be sitting back and waiting as you observe all this uncertainty and you observe that it's accelerating? No, my point is it's dangerous to sit and wait. Doing nothing is reckless in an environment like this. And the amount of uncertainty is mildly alarming with all that's coming at us right now. And acting rash, not being thoughtful about what to do, is also very dangerous. I just want to leave you with the idea that there are things that you can and should be doing right now to address all this uncertainty. Not only do I encourage you not to avoid the uncertainty or let's not talk about it and maybe it'll go away. No, rather than avoiding it, I'm recommending that when you understand the framework of how to deal with all this, that you lean into it. You lean into all this uncertainty and make it known that you have a framework for dealing with uncertainty. Once you understand how to approach all this uncertainty with confidence, make it known. Let your clients know, let your potential clients know when you're sitting down just grabbing coffee with friends and acquaintances. At some point, they're going to ask you, "So, what's going on with you?" And you could say, "There's so much uncertainty going on. It's really unprecedented how fast things are changing right now." Thankfully, we have a process for dealing with that. It's our specialty. And we're the only firm that is brought in when there's a great amount of uncertainty, and that's our specialty. So, what does all this talking it up mean? What does it do? I want to make the point that this is your reputation. The more you talk it up, the more you tell clients, "I have a plan for all the uncertainties in your life. Nothing's guaranteed." But the primary benefit of our way of doing this is you're coming in frequently. It allows us the opportunity to line up your situation with what's really going on. And if we need to make course corrections, we never miss those. So that means you're always on track to your goals. This is how we navigate uncertainty. And I'll go in the webinar and lay it out cleanly and crisply how you approach this framework of thinking, how to explain it to clients, and then separately, how to explain this sort of thinking to potential clients. I never want to be thought of as having any ulterior business motives while you're just grabbing coffee with a friend, but there is a way to have this conversation. The more you talk it up, the more that becomes your reputation. And what is your reputation? What does reputation even mean? Reputation is what others think about you before they've met you. And if your reputation is that you've mastered how to manage through uncertainty, that reputation becomes your marketing. That is marketing. The way I define marketing is, how do you orchestrate what people think and know about you before they sit down and talk with you? And if all your friends and all your acquaintances are crystal clear that how you navigate through uncertainty is a strength of yours, when they're out talking about you to other people, they're spreading the word of what you do best or the value that you provide that others don't. You're just interacting with a friend, no ulterior motives, yet they still come away understanding that this is your differentiating factor. They understand this is something that you do uniquely well. The final point is 99% of advisors who hear this message are going to do nothing. I predict that based on what I've seen in my 40 years. 99% of financial advisors hear about a major inflection point coming in the industry, and 99% of them ignore it. They're oblivious. And then when it comes, there's a huge reckoning where there's a huge turnover in the industry. But it's okay, because the old guard that was oblivious is washed away and the new generation of financial advisors comes in, and it's their world to rule at that point because they've figured out the inflection point before it was too late. So I'm encouraging you to be part of the 1% that leans in on this. I'm going to predict it's less than 1% of you who will take action, figure out what to do, how to think through and brainstorm how to actually take advantage of all this uncertainty, and then position yourself in a way where it's clear to everyone in your network, all your friends, all your acquaintances, all your clients, that you're the only firm in town that has mastered how to navigate successfully through all of this uncertainty. My call to action is be one of the less than 1%. There'll be a link below in this video where you can either register to join the webinar or watch the webinar. So don't be paralyzed. Just commit that you're going to have an action plan as we deal with all this uncertainty, but stay in your lane. My observation of how financial advisors react when, let's say, a client comes in and says, "Oh, with all the headlines I'm reading about how this war is getting worse," or it could be the financial markets, it could be whatever the apocalypse of the day is, but they tell you what they're concerned about. And what many advisors do, and I hesitate saying most, but I do think it is most, even the best financial advisors tend to handle this is they tend to restate what the client just said, but from a financial advisor's perspective, And then often you'll talk about what you're doing about that, but the opportunity that was missed is still the same. You're just giving your perspective on whatever the apocalypse is that the client's concerned about, when the bigger conversation and the greater opportunity is to deal with the issue of uncertainty in all areas, not just this thing that this client is worried about, but the issue of uncertainty in general, that you have cracked that code better than any other financial advisory firm in your market, and that this is actually why clients come to you and select you over other advisors, is because when it comes to planning through uncertainty, you're the only game in town. You want to be able to say that. And the opportunity when a client comes in all nervous over something that they're worried about, it's to have the bigger conversation. You want to be able to look a client or a potential client in the eye and say, I solve uncertainty. That's what we do here. The final word I'll say is, when it comes to non-clients, different is better than better. What I mean by that is, we all know that if we want to move upstream as we grow our business, we want to work with increasingly more complex, more successful, more affluent potential clients. We know we have to be different and better. I think that's common sense. What I'm saying is, you have to be better as a starting point, and you have to be confident that you're better. We certainly are. We know that we do a much more thorough planning job than anybody else in our market. So that's a given. Better is a given. The point is, when you're talking to non-clients or potential clients, that if you focus on how you're better, their eyes glaze over and you start to sound like every other financial advisor. Oh yeah, no, I'm sure that's true. I've heard it a million times. You're better. Don't focus on the fact that you're better. Focus on how you're different. I'm just throwing it out there that if you become known as the advisor that doesn't back off or be paralyzed by uncertainty, you become known as the only firm in town that navigates successfully through uncertainty, and that's what you're known for. So don't sound like every other advisor in town. That's part of the biggest problem with client acquisition with most financial advisors. They are better, but they can't get potential clients to believe it, because when you talk about being better, you just sound like every other financial advisor. But any way that you're different does catch the eye of potential clients. If you lean into being different, identify in your firm, what is it that we do that's different and better? Focus on the different, come up with ways to articulate that, even if you're talking about other topics. Different is better than better. The client knows they're not going to ever know whether you're better until and unless they work with you. But different, that's immediately obvious. So you focus on the differences between you and every other firm in your marketplace when you're talking to non-clients and potential clients. So that's it for today. I encourage you to watch the replay or to attend the webinar on this topic. Let's go through this much more action-oriented so you understand what to do and what to say. But we will see you in the next video.